Hi, welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. We've got Janet Napolitano. Let me see if we can grab those before we go back to the phones very quickly. Where is that Janet Napolitano clip? I think it's down about 15, Rob, if we can see where that puppy is. Let me grab that one. It's on the immigration and the border issue. Yeah, clip 15 is Big Sis, Janet Napolitano, on this immigration issue. And realize as you listen to this soundbite that all of the discussion about immigration, everybody agrees we shouldn't be granting amnesty to illegal aliens without assurance of border security. Now, I don't think we ought to grant a pathway to citizenship, period. That's my position. We believe in the rule of law. You've broken our law, and there are sanctions that come with that, and those sanctions ought to be carried out, and the law says you ought to be repatriated, returned to your homeland. That's what I believe. But some Republicans are caving on this, and they think there ought to be a pathway to citizenship, but everybody says, oh, yeah, we got to have border security. Now, don't forget that Janet Napolitano is out there saying, hey, the borders have never been more secure. So if that's the threshold, and Marco Rubio and the Amnesty 8, they're saying, hey, we're not going to legalize all these illegal aliens, these immigration criminals, we're not going to legalize them until the head of the Department of Homeland Security certifies that the border is secure. Well, Janet Napolitano has been telling everybody that, well, listen, the border is secure. Never been more secure. Go ahead and legalize. Now, here's where the administration works itself into a problem, into a jam, because now Janet Napolitano is out there saying, hey, if this sequester goes through, it is curtains for border security. And realize if that's true, now she's just doing it for political purposes. There's no reason for the border to become less secure. She's going to have more money to spend than she did last year. There's absolutely no reason. But if she deliberately does things to make the border less secure or hypes the insecurity on the southern border, then isn't she telling us, hey, it's way too soon to be talking about legalizing all these illegal? Way too soon. Our border's not secure. I'm here to tell you, as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, our borders are not secure. This sequester is killing our ability to protect our southern borders. We can't be talking about legalizing people. We got to get our borders secure. Let's listen. Clip 15, Janet Napolitano.
Sequestration will have serious consequences for our other missions as well. As I said, CBP will have to furlough all of its employees, reduce overtime, and eliminate hiring to backfill position, decreasing the number of hours our Border Patrol has to operate between the ports of entry by up to 5,000 Border Patrol agents. The Coast Guard will reduce its presence in the Arctic by a third. We will curtail our air and surface operations by more than 25%, affecting management of the nation's waterways, as well as fisheries enforcement, drug interdiction, and migrant interdiction. Under sequestration, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also part of DHS, will be forced to reduce detention and removal and would not be able to maintain the 34,000 detention beds as required by Congress. It would also reduce our investigative activities in areas like human smuggling and commercial trade fraud.
So what we ought to do then is forget all about that amnesty stuff. Our borders are going to leak like a sieve. We can't control our borders on the coast. We can't control the southern borders. We don't have a place to detain these illegal aliens. We just need to forget all about that amnesty stuff. So Janet Napolitano doesn't even realize she just shot herself right in the kneecap, and she shot comprehensive immigration reform right in the kneecap. Because if this sequestration goes into effect, and it will, Republicans are saying we're done talking about tax increases. Obama says I won't do anything without tax increases. So this sequestration, it looks now it's going to go into effect. That means that comprehensive immigration reform ought to be off the table for 10 years because this sequestration thing is slated to go out for 10 years. So we're done with comprehensive immigration reform if you believe the words that are coming out of their own mouths. Rob, let's grab clip 18 before we go back to the phone. Senator Leahy, Patrick Leahy, talking about this border security issue. And listen to what Patrick Leahy says, because remember, everybody's saying everybody else, but Leahy's saying we got to have border security before we go and naturalize these illegal aliens. Here's Patrick Leahy.
if you say there must be total security before we can go forward, well, that's never going to happen. I mean, we spend billions and billions of dollars.
But you wouldn't mind measurements along the way.
But I don't mind measurements. I think that this administration, the Obama administration, has spent more money on border security than any administration in history. There are still going to be some people getting through.
So Patrick Leahy says, hey, if you're going to have total security before we do legalize, it's never going to happen. Well, then we never should legalize. Because if the precondition is border security, Patrick Leahy says we're never going to get there. Okay, well, let's forget all about this amnesty business. Why are we even talking about amnesty if our leaders in the Senate are telling us that border security is impossible? If Janet Napolitano was telling us, hey, this sequester is going to kill us, we're going to have to lay off Border Patrol agents, we're going to have to empty our jails, we're not going to have enough Coast Guard, well, then let's forget all about that amnesty business. And, of course, they're just doing this purely for political purposes, but they don't realize they've just talked themselves right into a knot. Let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Curtis in Searcy, Arkansas. Curtis, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Fisher, for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the ministry of AFR. I would just like to say one thing. There's a lot of people in America that seem to be asking, doesn't the president know that this doesn't work? Doesn't he know that that doesn't work? Doesn't he know that the programs that he's trying to do will not work? They haven't worked in the past, and there's no way they'll work in the future. They're trying to give him a pass and make it look like, well, he doesn't know. Well, I believe with all my heart that he does know exactly what he's doing. He's doing everything he can do to destroy our nation. And if we as Christian people in this country do not stand up and speak out and let it be known to our elected officials how we feel about things, we need to be as vocal as the homosexual people.
Yes, and I agree with you, and I can't argue with anything you've said there, Curtis. And, I do believe we have a president now who has almost 4 full years left in his second term to carry out his agenda, which either intentionally or unintentionally is destroying the United States of America. And I agree with you, Curtis. I believe it is intentional. I read a piece by Victor Davis Hanson this week talking about why civilizations in history have collapsed. And it was interesting. He found one common denominator in every civilization, every society that folded, that collapsed in on itself. Every one of them, whether you go back to Greece, whether you go back to Rome, whether you look at what's happening right now, what caused civilizations to collapse is they had more takers than makers. And you had an increasing number of people competing for an ever smaller pie. Now, this is exactly what President Obama is deliberately doing. He's trying to get as many people on welfare as he possibly can. He's trying to get as many people on Social Security disability benefits as he possibly can. He's trying to get as many people on food stamps as he possibly can. He's trying to get as many people completely, helplessly, hopelessly dependent on government as he possibly can. Because in the end, what happens then, if you have more and more people that are looking to the government for their basic needs, that pipeline begins to dry up, then they start to compete for a smaller and smaller pie. And tensions grow, factions grow, division grows. You wind up with chaos and with anarchy, and an entire culture, an entire society, an entire nation can fall apart, and that's where we're headed. And it's a mountain. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this program, this is a mountain that we're staring at. Now, I believe that God can move this mountain. But we, as people of faith, we have to have the faith that God can do it. We got to pray about it. We've got to believe him for it. We can't despair. We can't give in. We can't quit. We can't opt out. We got to stay engaged. But as the last caller, Curtis, said, we also have to speak. We've got to make our voices heard. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
God bless you, Dr. Fisher. I so much appreciate your program, and I just listen to you every day. I think you're just a blessing to all of us.
Thank you very much. By the way, I'm not a doctor, but I appreciate.
Okay.
But if you want to grant me an honorary degree, Jerry, I'll take it.
This just came out from that caller 2 or 3 back that Al. he needs to read the last paragraph in Revelations, and then he'll get the difference between reinterpreting the Bible, with his subject between love and justice.
Well, we went over this the other day, Jerry. Let me just interject. Jesus coming back in Revelation 19, riding a white horse, swinging a sword, got a robe dipped in blood. Doesn't sound like gentle Jesus, meek and mild to me. Anyway, go ahead, Jerry. Finish your thought.
Well, anyway, getting back to this immigration thing, that's a real sore subject with me. And, of course, everyone, they're focusing on the detainees. And, of course, that's very important. But what they're missing is how many citizens in Texas, my state, New Mexico, Arizona, all living down near the borders have been killed, murdered, just their property violated by these insurgents, and they're foreign enemies to our state, to our country, and they're coming in. They're armed insurrectionists that are coming in. And just a year ago, there were signs in the state of Arizona. If you're going down that interstate, I forget which one it is, and it says if you go through this area, proceed at your own caution.
Yeah, they're telling Americans to stay off of American soil because illegal aliens are coming through here, and you might get shot.
Yeah.
I mean, and I appreciate that, Jerry. Thank you very much for that. And that's amazing to me. It's like our own government is telling us, look, we know where these illegal aliens are. We know where these drug cartels are coming through. It's right here. Here's the corridor. We're going to mark it for you. But instead of dealing with the problem, instead of interdicting these drug cartels and the flow of illegal aliens and the human trafficking, we're just going to let them come right on through, and we're going to tell you got to stay out here. We're not going to tell the illegal aliens you got to stay out of this corridor. We're going to tell law-abiding American citizens you got to stay out of this corridor. It's insanity. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back after the news.